differentiation session, and I am showing you the Mosaic exemplar lesson, and you're saying, Izzy, how could this be? This is differentiation. And I am telling you that you have successfully differentiated your lesson plan if you have made the intentional choices and followed the patterns and the ideas that we have been presenting. Because first of all, understanding your content rigor, the level of rigor of your standards, addressing that in your objective, clearly stating a what and how, considering options for visual vocabulary, using entry strategies such as multiple entry points with different complexity levels, providing student choice, giving a link to a Prezi video, or if you were in person, making sure that you are bringing attention to the statement of instructional purpose, using strategies such as our taxonomy strategies in your exploration, or technology to have students collaborate. These are differentiation strategies. These are whole and small group strategies. Even when we get to independent work and we're talking about independent tasks, and now how we use an exemplar or a rubric or solution steps, these are differentiation strategies. So MEPs, whole group differentiation, strategy structures and devices, like our taxonomy, that is a small group differentiation. Using exemplars, having kids, requiring students to self-assess. These are individual differentiation strategies, ways in which they can provide their own feedback and growth. These are differentiation strategies. Lesson closure, different ways to show what we know. That's product. Okay, either work samples, writing, completions of writing, using Flipgrid for video journaling, all differentiation strategies. Now we get to ones where are a little more specific. You can see in the differentiation box, I've put in content, process, and product. I've put in just the definitions there as a reminder to you guys. And then now definitions of accommodations and modifications. The one on modifications I pulled from the internet and was, I like the definition, but it's kind of directed at you as a parent, if you were a parent. And I take that to heart because my own daughter has a 504 plan. She needs certain modifications in her class for her to be successful. Now, students with IEPs or 504 plans have modified practices that need to go with them. So I want to just slow my talk down right now. Make sure that you're hearing me carefully. These are non-negotiables. Your teachers in your building, your fellow colleagues, some of them might want to push past these. These are not things to push past. You must pay attention to individual students' IEPs or 504 plans or both, okay, and make sure that you are indicating in your lesson plans what it is that you are using and doing, and that you are paying attention and following them closely. Okay, so when we talk about modifications, these are non-negotiables. And you will have, and the reason why I can't get into much detail there is because it's going to be based on the student and their particular individualized plan for them. This might show up, you might have 1, 2, 5, 8 students in a classroom at the same time with other students that don't have IEPs, don't have 504s. It's the idea of inclusion. And it's a way that we include all, provide equitable access to the content for all, because we're making sure that not just tailoring content, process, and product, but we're individualizing it as well for the certain few. If that is the case, you usually have a co-teacher in many instances. All right, so these are a lot of nuanced ideas and things that we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about right now, because those are going to be based on the building and the school you find yourself in. and their protocols and the way that they have ICT classes set up, or co-teachers and so on. But I want to talk about the things that we can control. You remember our guiding statement here for differentiation. Clearing a path for one can clear a path for all. So when we talk about accommodating students, we're thinking about ways in which we can add some tips and pointers and scaffolds and reminders, especially in a blended environment where we don't have anchor charts all the time. We're going to have to create an electronic anchor chart, ways in which students can constantly access scaffolded information so that it becomes a part of their personal process. All right. And the way that we do that is through our printing options for Mosaic. So if I'm going to zoom in real quickly and look at this toolbar, here is our card view so we can look at our lesson in uneditable version like we just were. We can always edit each piece of it, go back here or unclick on this, and then we have the editing options. All right, here's our comments. You already have seen some of the comments that we've put into your lessons regarding your objective and so on. So you see how you can have an interaction with school leadership, or even with your co-teachers or yourself if you wanted to remind yourself of some things. But now we have the next two buttons, and when I roll the cursor over that first one, it'll say print. And when I roll it over the second one, it'll say print. That is because there are two different ways to print the lessons, and I'm going to show you a couple of different useful reasons for each. The first one is we'll print to a downloadable web-based PDF, okay? And the second one will print to Google Docs. Now you say, well, why printing my lesson? Why will that help my students? It won't. But what it will help is that you should know that behind the scenes, while you were writing your lesson, there is an accompanying student guide that's being created for you, really for your students. So let me just not push that just yet. I want to illustrate something right here at this point. So this is a pause and think moment. This is a shift in what usually gets taught to people or described to people in terms of lesson planning. And that is the following. When you write your lesson plans, I want to encourage you to write the plans to the correct audience. Your lesson plans are not to be written to your administrator. Many people get it twisted and think that they are checking boxes and putting plans there because the administrator wants to see them, or the AP or the content lead or whoever it might be. And they get checked every week, and I have to have them, and I have to put them at my door if I'm getting observed, and make sure there's copies for each observer and so on. This is not meant to be a task to check boxes on a evaluative level and for you to write these to your administrator. It is to be written to your students. They are your audience. So when you write a lesson plan, look at the language that I'm using in my exemplar. Use this link to familiarize yourself with this lesson's objectives and starter questions. I probably should add an apostrophe in there, and I will in a minute. During our live discussion of the entry questions, be sure to take personal notes and so on. I'm writing this work to the student. During our discussion of the starter questions, for this exploration, we'll be using a Padlet. All of these are just instruction. The following task is to be completed 100% on your own. This isn't to the administrator. They're not completing it on their own. But I'll tell you now, I have read hundreds, if not thousands, of lesson plans, and never in my life would I get confused if I read one that was speaking to the student and think, I wonder what the teacher's doing. Your lesson plans, the reason it gets reviewed and evaluated and looked at by administration is to get an image, a picture, a mental image of what is happening inside your classroom. So if I'm doing that, I don't want to speak to the administrator. I want to give them a visual. I'm picturing students right now. I didn't get to this level of coaching and administration to not be able to understand and see the plan that's happening and carried out if you write it to the student. So I hope I really harped on that enough, because now I I would really encourage you to go back and reword all of your introductions, all of the different posts, and so on. So when we talk about lesson entry and we write a post, the purpose is to identify ways to represent real world scenarios. So this is what I'm doing. Okay. Now, when I come here to print this, I can print a student guide now. And the student guide, I can put in or leave out all of the different components that are going to be important to the student. I can uncheck all of these and just print out an exit assessment. Okay, the other thing in this print mode is that I can change the language. I'm going to translanguage this to Spanish and show you what happens. When I push print, you'll get the usual, spinorama until it comes up, which is only that fast. And now what I have is that entire lesson, both translanguaged and transformed into a note-taking guide. This is a Cornell-style note-taking guide, which offers kind of split-page experiences where students can see things like the key vocabulary and maybe take some notes on it. They can get entry and take some notes on it, have options for space for that. See, I can say lesson entry response. Because remember, students are choosing one of them. They might be taking notes on all three of them, but they're choosing one of them. The space is then in for my mini lesson discussion, right? Where I might have some drawing, some space for note taking. I have my higher order questions that accompany the students. Some of these I'm asking them to complete. Some of them I use as formative assessments for them to complete after the task. All right, so all of these are differentiated strategies. Every one of these links are connected and can kind of be used just like this. All right, so the student can use this in an online environment as well. I can download this and put it into my Google Classroom, and all of the links are live. All right, so this is a phenomenal way to connect students to a differentiated note-taking guide, to give them a lot of support and scaffolding. And when you write the lesson to the student, you are giving them a chance to really work with the material and have access to it. I will tell you this as from a logistics standpoint. If you wanted this to be a paper and pencil experience, and you want to print this note-taking guide for your students, you must first download it. If you download it here and then open it in Adobe and print, it'll print with all as is. It'll look like this. If you use this print button, like with any web-based PDF, you're going to have to adjust the scale and the size. Okay, so it's not that it can't happen. It's just that it's a little more annoying. But that is not on our end. That is on the online environments, and there's not much we can do to make that merge except download and print. All right, so now let's go to the other feature, the Google Doc feature. Now this is where we really can add a bunch of accommodations. And I want to show you, I'm going to leave the other one in a tab so I can show you that both ideas can work simultaneously, whether it's PDF version or Google Doc. So I'm going to say print a student guide in Google, and it's going to spin and spin and spin, and here it comes. The first time you do this, you will have to connect your Drive folder, so it has to go into the Drive somewhere. I'm going to say open doc, and now I have the same exact note-taking guide. It's certainly a little less, pretty and glamorous, but I can edit as I want, and I can have students can write directly into this, and I can connect this very easily to my Google Drive and to my Google Classroom. I want to show you how. If I go up here and it says move, I will click my Drive. One of the folders in my Drive is Google Classroom. So I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to put this into my sample period and say move it here. And now this is going to be inside my Google Classroom folder. So it's that quick. All right. And another nice option here is when you do have a co-teacher, an ICT teacher, oftentimes you don't want to take away from the integrity of the original lesson. So in Mosaic, your lesson plan will be created and it will be housed there. But each year you might make a few modifications to that lesson, but in general it's going to stay the same. And with that, you don't want to have a bunch of different things on top of it that have been changed and modified. So you can download this to a Google Doc as such, and then teachers can add their own comments. They can modify the content for other students, and have them create their own personal. Maybe there's one or two that need some large amounts of modifications, and they can do that. For instance, they might want to take away a couple of the samples because maybe one is all they need to work with, or it's an overwhelming look, and so on. Okay, so when we have in the Google Doc world, when we have modifications, we can do that using some bookmarks. So accompanying every lesson can be an opportunity for you to use a support doc. All right, and this support doc can work for all of your lessons, so you're only linking to one place. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go back to my web-based PDF, and I'm going to look, and it says, look, don't forget about the lesson key and success reminders. Okay, so we say, what are those? Well, if I click on this, I'm connecting this to a support material guide. And I'm looking and saying, okay, follow the colors. This is one of the great differentiation ideas. Color is a main theme. It really stands out, particularly, it stands out for anybody. It's why we highlight things, but particularly for students of certain need, it really highlights and brings to light some things to focus on. And so when we follow the colors, we might have created a scenario in online. Now we're talking more online version, where we have yellow indicates key vocabulary. Blue is the heading. So what I mean by that is if I have my key vocabulary over in my lesson that I just downloaded, well, I might have to take all that and highlight it in yellow. Okay, so I'm just going to come in, put my highlight on, and bang, there they are in yellow. This is the work of an ICT or a co-teacher who specializes in this process. But it is also the expectation and work of a general ed teacher who might not specialize but needs to use and build up their repertoire of differentiation strategies. So this could be used as a guide for you as well. In this particular class, and this is a real class with real kids that follow this key, whether they are in need of it or whether it just becomes something that is a reminder to them of best practice. All the headings and introductions will be in blue, all the tasks for completion in green, and so on. Now, if you notice, I have bookmarks, not links. We do not want to link every time to a new page, new page, new page, new page. We want to have this as one page. Here are some of the differentiation strategies that are embedded in this support doc. We have reminders for students of certain need. Don't forget, this is for an online environment. So where it says have a snack if you feel your energy declining, well, that's because we know they have access to such things, assumably. So then the next one might be a visual agenda. These are things we might use consistently and put down on a student's desk as a reminder, laminated. Here you go. This is something that you have to do. I have a daughter of mine that struggles with ADHD. She's a diagnosed ADHD student, and her ability to follow tasks really is difficult when it's multitask. It is one direction at a time and checkbox. So speaking of checkboxes, you see these checks in here. Well, these checkboxes were created just the same way you would add a special character. So something like this here, where I'm going to put in a open box. And when I have a student that has read all the directions, they now have the ability to click into this box, right click. So I'll do that again. This is single click, right click, and it pulls up a menu, and I'm going to check it off. I completed this task. Here, I'll reset this for you. Reset this. See how I'm clicking on it once? I click the bulleted list, down arrow, open up a plain empty open box. Okay, so this could be reset each time. For the students, it kind of resets itself because you're checking back into this bookmark at a later date for your lessons. So you're going to reset this all for them each time. So they'll come in and they'll have a blank canvas. They can then single click, right click, add something. All right. You notice here I have a timer. In an online environment, I want to connect students to what I remind them of often, which is you need to be able to use time wisely. So they can set a 2-minute timer, have it go off, put a different sound to it, whatever they want to do with all that. But I'm going to give that to them electronically, as well as the rest of this visual agenda that shows like number 1, number 2. I can take these number 1 and 2s and copy it, go into my lesson and say, don't forget that the first thing we're going to do is the MEPs. Okay, and I don't know why that didn't want to show up for me, but in general, it's going to copy right in there and paste right in there, and I don't like that. So I will come to the bottom of that at a later date for you. So here I'm going to copy. Let's try the number 2. As in, let's try that again. And 2, and then we get this. I don't understand that, and that's annoying. So I apologize. But you know that you can pull in an image into a Google Doc at any time. Now, when we get down to certain scaffolds, this might be a part of that lesson where it's getting a little more specific. And in an online environment, I want to connect to this bookmark. So first of all, let's talk about how to put in a bookmark. If I highlight any word or any section of text that I want to have bookmarked, I'm not going to link. That's different. That's sending me to a website. I want to insert a bookmark. Okay, insert bookmark. Now I have a bookmark over the top of this, and it's kind of right there. It was already done, so it didn't show up again. When I right-click the bookmark, okay, I'm come up. You see how there's 2 of them? When I click the bookmark, I'm going to do that again. Just single click. I said right. We're going single click bookmark. It says link. I now have to right click on top of that link. Then I can copy the link address. One more time. Single click a bookmark. Right click the link. Copy the link address. Now I'm going to go back to my lesson and I'm going to say that this is where I want to put that link. Now I highlight. Now I go to link, copy into there, and there it is. So when a student clicks on this, and it's going to go straight into that section, right to the F of functions like we had bookmarked. All right. So this is also a rubric. So we say evaluating functions. I want to put that into the rubric of my independent work or my examples for learning. And I'm coming down to right here, my examination criteria. So it says rubric or checklist. I'm gonna put that in there. So I didn't copy it yet, but I have everything ready. I'm gonna paste that link, and it was, I believe, right here. So I'm gonna go to this bookmark, single click, right click on link, copy link address, go back to my lesson, paste it in, apply. Now when I click on this, a student clicks on it, they can go straight to the rubric. Okay, so you can see how this can be used ongoing. Okay, it can be used in conjunction with your Mosaic. So I want to put this into my my exploration, or that was independence. Let's go back here. See how it says checking against an established criteria? Well, we put this in here and said, if you need extra practice with the concept, click this link. Okay, so that this link part can be put in like this. I can click over practice, say link, open in a new tab, insert. When I save and continue, and now I could see that it's on my independent section, and I have that link. I also put a different one before, just fooling around with it. So I'm going to click on link. It's going to go back to that rubric that we had set up before. All right. So you can see so many different ways to modify material, to create consistent learning environments, to create a anchor chart. So really what you really want to start with is this anchor chart. Now you'll have some that'll be consistent. Always go back to those anchors. Maybe this is a folder in your Google Drive that says anchor charts for online learning. Anchor charts for for in-person learning. They can be printed out. You can posterize it so that students in a blended environment have the same experience in class or online. So those online links, though, can go directly into your Mosaic, can get printed out into the PDF version for student use, or even into the Google Doc. The Google Doc, it is beyond our control, but you have to relink the sections you want once you send them out of Mosaic into a Google Doc. That is a Google API problem or issue, or maybe that's what they just don't want us to be able to do that so directly. That is not a Mosaic one. So there's really no way of fixing that unless they changed the way they develop their technology and give us access to it, I should say. So those are the ways to differentiate. You have a fully differentiated lesson when you have a mosaically planned lesson, a rigorous lesson. We have created space for kids to access content and make their own meaning. We've created space for them to collaborate on a personal process, or to create a personal process through the persistence of collaboration and coming down to solving problems and modeling process and so on. And then we have them differentiate their content in different ways, or their product, I should say, in different ways by looking at self-evaluating, peer evaluating, and getting feedback from teachers, peers, and even themselves as they work through and apply their process. So those are the components of rigorous and engaging lessons that are differentiated. I hope that you were able to really grasp a lot of the concepts. This is a deep and ever-changing and ever-winding structure that you are going to have to stay on, create personal processes of your own so that you can both logistically make this possible and a little easier for yourself, but also involve the students in that process so that they are able to follow along each lesson and get the support they need to access it. And that will be work well done. Well, that's it for this session. I hope that you're able to work some of these strategies into your exemplar lesson, and happy planning.